If you didn't know it yet, Toyota's Venza is back, and this time it's an all-wheel drive, all-hybrid, more premium two-row crossover. Toyota has not given us too many detailed specifications just yet, but we do know that in terms of price and in terms of overall size, this is going to slot right between the RAV4 Hybrid and the Highlander Hybrid. So expect this to be pretty much in the middle in terms of overall size, being a larger two-row crossover, competing very directly with the Ford Edge, the Nissan Murano, the Hyundai Santa Fe, etc., and of course giving us a more premium interior, something along the lines of the Nissan Murano, or perhaps even an alternative to the Lexus RX 350. And that's probably what surprised me most about this release, is that they're claiming that the new Venza crossover is going to be more premium than most of Toyota's product line, and when you take a look at some of these interior shots, I think it's really obvious. But before I digress too far, let's take a look at the outside. You'll definitely notice that this is styled very differently than the Highlander and very differently than the RAV4. I'm not entirely sure about this front-end design. Let me know what you think about this down there in the comments section below. It reminds me a little bit of the Toyota Mirai, and I'm thinking the new Mirai rather than the old Mirai, of course. And then when we move around to the side profile, I'm seeing an awful lot of Lexus RX in this overall design. This kind of makes me wonder. I'm interested to see if the new Lexus RX ends up being very closely related to the Venza, if they're going to share much in terms of overall styling, because I really like the way the Venza looks a little bit more than the current generation RX. As we move to the rear, you'll see that we have a lot of LEDs going on there, twin exhaust tips, plenty of hybrid badges all the way around. And speaking of hybrids, this is the same new 2.5-liter hybrid system that we find in the RAV4, the Camry, the Avalon, of course the Highlander, and the new Toyota Sienna as well. This hybrid system comes in two different power levels, one that's about 220 horsepower, 219 horsepower in this vehicle and in the RAV4, and then one that's up there in the 240s like we see in the Highlander and the Sienna. I have to admit, I'm a little surprised that the Venza is going to be getting the less powerful version of this hybrid system rather than the 243 horsepower that we see in the larger Toyota models. This is probably because they wanted the Venza to be the utmost in fuel efficiency in this segment, and they're claiming this is going to give us the same 40 miles per gallon combined that we find in the RAV4 Hybrid, even though the Venza is a larger vehicle. Now, Toyota was careful to say that 40 miles per gallon combined happens only in the LE trim. I suspect that the other trims are going to get 38 to 39 miles per gallon. They're probably going to have wider tires. As I said before, there are a lot of things that we don't know about the Venza just yet, including overall size and overall pricing, but again, expect this to be right between the two other options in the Toyota lineup. A little bit different than the Highlander Hybrid, all Venza models are going to have Toyota's e-all-wheel drive system standard, more like the RAV4. The e-all-wheel drive system has also been tuned a little bit differently than previous generations of Toyota's e-all-wheel drive system, in that it is more aggressive at sending torque to the rear axle than it has been in the past. So I expect this to be a little bit more similar to the Highlander Hybrid and the RAV4 Hybrid in terms of its overall e-all-wheel drive feel than perhaps something like the Lexus RX Hybrid or, of course, the previous generation RAV4 Hybrid. Toyota tells us that the Venza is all about style, and that's really obvious when we hop inside. We get a huge 12.3-inch available infotainment screen. It really dominates the dashboard and has a very strong hourglass shape. I'm not entirely sure about the shape, but the screen is gorgeous. It's basically the same screen that we see in the Highlander, and it offers Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integration. But oddly enough, Apple CarPlay does not occupy the entire screen. It only occupies about 2/3 of the screen overall. The interior definitely looks to be higher quality in terms of overall materials than we see in the RAV4, definitely in keeping with that next category up. So this should be a very solid competitor to something like the Nissan Murano or, of course, the Jeep Grand Cherokee, which are also designed to be a step up in their segment in terms of overall interior refinement. Toyota also spent a decent amount of time in their literature talking about quietness and cabin noise isolation, so I'm going to go ahead and expect that the Venza is probably going to give us a more Lexus-like experience when it comes to overall ride quality and likely cabin noise as well. They've packaged the lithium-ion battery pack below the rear seats so that way it doesn't take up any cargo room. And that gives us the one specification that they did give us in advance, which is 36.3 cubic feet of storage space. That means that this is not a massive improvement over the average two-row compact crossover in America, so I expect that the balance of the size is going to be given to us in the rear seat area. The current generation RAV4 is a little bit tight in the back seat, so that's likely going to be one of the reasons that you might want to upgrade into the Venza from something like the RAV4. The other reason is, again, going to be the overall level of refinement on the inside. It definitely appears that we have more premium materials, more premium touch points, etc. than you find in the average compact crossover, and more modern gadgets as well, like the really cool LCD moonroof that we see in this model. This is a feature that we've seen in some very expensive Mercedes models in the past, but now, rather than launching it in a new Lexus, they're going to be launching it in a much more affordable vehicle. All of the rest of Toyota's latest gadgets are also going to be showing up in the Venza, like the cooled front seats, the large heads-up display, basically the same one that we see in the Toyota Camry, all of their latest active safety features, etc. Again, we don't know exactly how much the Venza is going to cost, but they have said that it's going to be available for sale in the US sometime in late summer of 2020. That means that hopefully I'll be driving it pretty soon, and we'll get some of those final details that we can share with you at that time. Apparently, the Venza will be built in a Japanese factory, not in one of the North American factories, and that likely means that production hasn't been quite as impacted by a lot of the shutdowns that we've seen in America. If you're looking for an alternative to the average compact crossover in America that gives you a bit more room, a lot more luxury on the inside it appears, and of course, stellar fuel economy and a quiet ride, then the Venza may be worth waiting for. Although again, I'm a little bit surprised that Toyota didn't go to the next step and bring the 243 horsepower hybrid trim from the Sienna and from the Highlander down into the Venza. But there's always hope that there might be something like a Venza Prime coming on the horizon at some point. Toyota didn't rule out the possibility, but they also didn't say that there was anything coming anytime soon that they could talk about. So I expect it's going to be at least several years until we see something like that over 300 horsepower system in the upcoming RAV4 transplanted into the Venza. It would likely fit because the two vehicles are pretty closely related. So Toyota, if you're listening, hopefully we don't have to wait several years for that. Let's hope that maybe that comes in 2022 perhaps. In the meantime, be sure and hit that subscribe button down there at the bottom of your screen so you can be updated on all of our latest videos. Hopefully we'll be driving the Venza just as soon as possible. I'll see all of you later. Be sure and find us over at facebook.com and of course Instagram as well.